Greetings, my sweet fourth graders. I hope everybody's well. We have an exciting topic today. We've been learning about the digestive system for the last 2 weeks, and now we're going to take that information that we know about the digestive system and we're going to apply nutrition to it. Okay, so let me say from the outset that there are disagreements between some people about nutritious things. Most people agree on the basics, but there are other, little tiny details that people disagree about. For instance, the government might tell us that we need to eat a certain amount of a particular type of food, where your parents might think that's not the most important thing. All right, in that particular case, you listen to your parents. Okay, they know you better than the government knows you. So these are general guidelines, and we're finding out new things all the time and contradictory things. And so remember that using your intelligence and your wisdom to listen to your parents, that goes a long way when it comes to nutrition. All right, but there are some general things that we can learn about that. For instance, what are the things that are considered nutritious? Let's get started with a little bit of an introduction. 2:35.
Essential nutrients are components in food that your body can't make on its own, and that we need to grow, function, and stay healthy. So we must get these nutrients through our diets. There are 6 classes of essential nutrients. Carbohydrates are the main source of calories or energy in the diet. Fats also give us energy and help with normal growth and development, immune function, vitamin absorption, hormone production, and more. Proteins and the amino acids they are made of are major structural components of our body's cells and are responsible for building and repair of tissues and maintenance of muscle and lean body mass. There are 13 essential vitamins which have important jobs, such as keeping our nerves healthy, helping us resist infection, assisting with blood clotting, and keeping our metabolism running. Minerals are only needed in small amounts, but play a vital role in muscle contraction, fluid balance, food digestion, bone building, blood pressure regulation, and more. Water is also an essential nutrient that delivers other nutrients to cells, regulates the body temperature, acts as a shock absorber and lubricant, and helps in the removal of waste from the body. Bioactive compounds are not considered essential because they haven't been shown to lead to deficiencies if they're missing in the diet. However, they may positively impact health. Bioactives are a big part of nutrition research, as scientists are trying to better understand and unlock their potential health benefits. Bioactives that you have likely heard of are carotenoids. These colorful plant pigments found in bright red, yellow, and orange fruits and vegetables act as powerful antioxidants and may help prevent some types of cancer and heart disease, reduce the risk of eye disease, enhance the immune system, and more. Resveratrol is another bioactive found in the skin of grapes, blueberries, raspberries, and mulberries that may reduce the risk of heart disease. Flavonols are a part of the flavonoid family that are found in tea, red wine, and cocoa and may positively influence our cardiovascular health. Phytosterols are steroid compounds in plants that may lower cholesterol and improve cardiovascular health. Phytoestrogens, found in many plants including soy and other legumes, are also being studied for their potential in reducing the risk of breast cancer. Healthy eating is important at every age, but the amount of nutrients we need and our body's ability to process them can change over time and depend on your personal health status.
Okay, so there you go. So that's a general outline, and we're going to be looking at the individual components of our food. Okay, so the food we eat is made up of many kinds of nutrients. We just saw that in the video. And digestion, we already know this, breaks the food down so we can use those nutrients. The 3 main nutrients you need are fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So those are called macronutrients, okay, because we absolutely need to get those in our diet. We also need water. Water is just going to help keep all of our cells functioning properly. Water is critical. Vitamins and minerals may help make us healthy. Vitamin minerals are typically coming from our food. Depending on the certain type of vegetable that we eat, we can get certain minerals and vitamins from them. Furthermore, you might be taking a multivitamin, so like a tablet you take every day. That's up to your parents if you want to do that. It is a great way, generally, to get some of these trace elements that we need. All right. Let's start with proteins. What in the world are proteins? They are used to build up tissue and repair our bodies. So essentially, protein is the chemical makeup of muscles. So if you're trying to build muscles, you're trying to, lift weights and get big muscles, you need to make sure that you're getting enough protein with your diet. All right, many necessary chemicals make up proteins. Those are called amino acids. We get our protein from meat. So if you are a meat eater, you are getting all the amino acids to build your own muscle that you need. Other sources would include eggs, nuts, beans, and dairy products. So if you are a vegetarian, if somebody decides to become a vegetarian, they of course wouldn't be eating meat, and therefore they have to be sure that they're getting enough of the right amino acids to build the protein you need in your body. Okay, these are there's about 22 amino acids, and a number of them, 6 or 8 of them, are essential, meaning that we must get those from our diet. Others can be sort of synthesized and manufactured in our liver and things like this, but we have to get these from our diet. If you are eating, like I said, meat, then you know you're getting them all. If you are not, however, eating meat, you've got to put together proteins so that you get the right number of amino acids. One I can remember right off the top of my head is if you eat beans and corn together, then those will give you the combination of the amino acids that you need. Proteins look like this. Okay, so their amino acids are lined up and they're made of certain chemicals. This would be carbon and nitrogen, a hydrogen and oxygen, this kind of thing. R is probably a group that hangs off the end. And when you take those, they actually bend around each other and make this what's called secondary structure, where they're twisted and wound upon themselves. And then they twist some more, making our tertiary structure, like this. And then when they put together with other ones, that's called quaternary structure. When they've taken, so these are 4 different proteins put together. This, by the way, happens to be something known as hemoglobin, which is a protein that's found in your red blood cells. And it's very important because this little part right here called a heme, for the hemoglobin, is actually a little atom of iron, like the metal iron, and it will hold on to oxygen. And that's what your red blood cells are for. They're to carry oxygen into your tissues. All right, so that's a very important protein, hemoglobin. You've got, see, there's the heme up there, right? This is one of them put together with these. So these are some sources of protein. Okay, so we can see lots of meat in here, right? So we have fish on the right, and we have steaks and pork and chicken and ground beef. Look over here to the left. Eggs and nuts and cheese. Is that butter? That's a dairy product right there. Milk. So those are sources of protein. So typically when you have a meal, you should make sure that a portion of it includes protein. I tend to have trouble getting a protein at breakfast time, so I've decided that an egg for breakfast is a good plan. So I try. The problem is you have to make it, right? So I try to have an egg for breakfast, along with whatever else I'm eating. All right, fats. You might think, oh, yuck, fats. They're terrible. No, they're very important. It's absolutely mandatory that you have fat in your diet, mostly because what it does is the fat will give you certain protective things. For instance, fat surrounds there's this chemical called cholesterol, which you may have heard of, and you may have heard, oh, it's terrible, it's bad. No, it's very good as long as it's in the right place. Okay, so cholesterol helps to keep our blood vessels nice and supple so that they don't get all broken, and it helps to cushion our brain and keep our brain from being injured if we should fall down or something like this. It also is where we store some energy. All right, so we keep energy stored there when we need it, like if we're getting hungry and we don't have any food nearby, our body can go break it down the fat and use that fat for our nutrition. It also helps to insulate. That probably makes sense, right? It keeps us warm. It covers up, parts of our bodies. It's more prevalent in some areas of our body than others, but it does help us. So, but it turns out that there are such things as bad fats and good fats. So it's important to have healthy fats. So let's look at some of the good ones here. This is somebody's idea of good fats and bad fats. I'll tell you in a couple spots here where I disagree. This is salmon. Salmon and other types of wild-caught fish are excellent sources of fat, very good for us. They have a particular element in there called, it's vitamin D. It's a certain type of fatty acid that they have in there. This is God's gift to the planet right here, avocados, yum, right? And they have healthy fat in it. We have healthy fat in nuts, most nuts here, okay? Now, peanut butter is a really good source of fat, as a healthy fat, a good fat. There are some of them, though, that do have quite a bit of sugar in them. And so the organic ones that aren't quite as sweet are probably better. I know, I prefer the ones that do have sugar. I'm like, Jif. Jif is my favorite. Down here on the bottom list, there's one thing I'm going to disagree, and it's this one right here. This is butter. Butter, we have decided, and I agree with this, butter is a superfood. It's very, very good for you. So not margarine, but butter. Butter is a good fat, so I'll disagree. But down here, look, we have a pizza. You know, it's got cheese and stuff. There's fat in there, but a lot of that's processed. It doesn't mean that you should never, ever eat pizza. It's you don't want to eat pizza every meal for the rest of your life. You know, it wouldn't make any sense. Potato chips, they have unnecessary fat in them from being boiled in oil. Here we have a cupcake. Does that mean we should never, ever eat a cupcake? No. You go to a party, you eat your cupcake. You just don't want the majority of your fat coming from that. You want the majority of your fats coming from the healthy fats, and that'll keep you healthy. So be sure to make sure and have your butter and your nuts and your avocado and your fish several times a week. Okay, our carbohydrates. So carbs are kind of the main source of energy for this. They tend to be the one that gets processed the most quickly for the making of ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy that our whole digestive system is trying to do, right? So simple carbohydrates include sugars, literally sugar, like a sugar in a bowl on a table for your tea or whatever, but the sugars, we break it down into one called glucose. Glucose is essential for life. So you can tell your folks, sugar is essential for life, but it happens to be glucose, and glucose honestly isn't very sweet. If I gave you some to taste, you'd think, well, that's not very sweet. Yeah, but it is essential for making ATP, absolutely, positively. We take that glucose, and it's actually made by plants during photosynthesis. That's what they're doing in photosynthesis, making the glucose, and then they store the glucose. So think about it like, for instance, if you're going to have a carrot at lunchtime, that orange part, right, that's been down under the ground is part of the root system, and the glucose has been stored in there in a form known as starch. So we take a bunch of glucose molecules that are pretty small, so sugar molecules, and hook them all together, and that ends up with something called a starch molecule. And it's basically glucose in a chain. So when you eat it, your body will break down that starch, and it will take that glucose and use it in your body to produce adenosine triphosphate. There you go. So those long chains are called starch. They are found in roots, they are found in leaves, they are found in other vegetables and other fruits. They store the sugars that make energy possible. Carbohydrates, sugars, and starches are found in vegetables, fruits, and grains. All right. So another lesson here is I want to get some good healthy carbohydrates and not some junky ones. So the best place to get your carbs is from fruits and vegetables. And look at those beautiful fruits right there. There's an adage that they're having, the nutritionists are saying right now, which I agree with, although I will tell you, nutritionists are changing their mind all the time, but I think on this particular one that they won't change their mind and they're right. And that is eat the rainbow. Eat the rainbow. All the colors. Look at the colors here. I've got the greens and the blues and the reds and the yellows. There should be an orange in there, so we have the oranges. So we get all of those different colors. The more colors we're putting in, then we know the more healthy carbs we're getting. These are grains or starches. Okay, so now this is my opinion. These are not going to be as healthy carbs as fruits and vegetables are. Okay, and one of the reasons is we have changed a lot of the wheat plants out there scientifically. We have, literally added genetic information to them where sometimes our body just doesn't quite recognize them anymore. So you may have heard a lot of people talking about gluten-free stuff, and that's because some people have a quote-unquote allergy to gluten, and there certainly are people, don't get me wrong, there's a certain disease called celiac disease where your own body will start to work away at your intestine where you can no longer absorb the gluten that is in these foods, and because of that it causes damage to your small intestine. And if you know how our small intestine is important for absorbing our nutrients, so if it's damaged, we won't be able to absorb our nutrients very well. And so I think the fact that we have changed it so much, our body has stopped recognizing wheat as the nutrient that it should be. I'll also tell you this, that over in France there's not nearly as much of a problem with the gluten issues, and some people believe it's because of the way they treat the plant. So the plant is in the ground, they're farming it, and so in order to keep the bugs off of it, we will spray plants with some sort of pesticides to kill the bug and not kill the plant. And that way that the plant won't be killed by the bug, and the poison for the bug won't kill the plant either. But sometimes that poison that kills the bug remains on the plant, and that poison can be transferred to us when we eat the food and possibly be the source of our problem with gluten. There are some people who believe that. I know in France, since they've stopped using a certain poison called glyphosate, that there are people that can eat bread just fine. Even people in America who have trouble with bread here can go to France and eat it just fine. So it might have something to do with that glyphosate. I'm not exactly sure. Notice we have potatoes and sweet potatoes over here. They are very starchy. Some people, like if someone's going on a diet, they may not want to eat very many potatoes, mostly because there's just so much starch in there. I will say sweet potatoes are very healthy for us. I love potatoes. I do eat them. I will say I'm not big on other grains. I do eat them. I just don't eat them every day. Okay, so it's most about, not wanting to get too fat, kind of a thing. So what about those vitamins and minerals? All right, we call these trace elements. It's important that we get them. You don't want to have too much. You can overdose on some of them. But mostly we're talking about these micronutrients called vitamins and minerals. They can be found in various foods, vegetables, and fruits. And like I said earlier, you might take a multivitamin tablet, which has it all in one little pill, which makes it at least convenient. You've got it. All right, so here's a list of things that, I can't see the top of this chart. Let me see if I can try. Yeah, it's telling me I've got that these are supplying carbs for me, right? And you can see how much they are. So look, kale's got 1,000. I'm assuming that means 1,000 milligrams of carbohydrate available in there. You know what collard greens are? Not very many people. I mean, there are people who really don't like them, and I can understand that. They're pretty good. I love spinach. I've just now become a fan of Brussels sprouts. Look at all these different leafy vegetables over here. Cabbage, romaine lettuce. Then we get to the broccoli and cauliflower. These right here are very healthy for us. Green pepper, carrots, asparagus. Most of these things are really great for us. Notice over here we also are bringing in some fats right over here. So I think those might be the fats right there. We have beans, sweet potatoes right here. So these are apparently what this is telling us that these are sources of minerals as well. Trace minerals, I guess. I'm sorry, I can't tell what it's telling me right there. Okay, water. Water is essential for life. It helps digest the food. It literally, dissolves it. Helps to form it into the bolus, and it keeps flowing through the system, that kind of thing. It helps the process of absorption. The water gets carried across the small intestine, and the nutrients go with it. So be sure to drink plenty of water. There we go. The food pyramid is kind of going out of style a little bit. It's issued by the government of the United States. When I was growing up, it looked like this, the old food pyramid, where it showed, the largest part on the base right here is grains. And then the next two groups would be fruits and vegetables. Then come our dairy products and our meats. So there's our proteins up here. And then limited fats right here. So this has changed just the idea of it somewhat. In my opinion, I'd take the vegetables and fruits and put them in the lower, if you ask me. So let's look over here. We still have it. This is how it's changed. Instead of this direction, they're going this direction. That everything's important. We still do have at the very tip the fats right there, right? Yeah, I think so. Oh, no, oils right here. Oils and fats would be right there, a skinny line. But notice it has a lot of grains right here, so about 6 ounces of grains. This is the recommended amount from the government. So, in my opinion, you don't need to listen to the government about it. They don't know much about everything, right? They know some things, but talk to your folks about it and see what they recommend. Vegetables and fruits, we should get quite a few of those every day. We get our milk and our dairy products and our meat and beans, and then limited oils. But I would say the fats that are healthy, like the avocado and the butter and those kind of things, get plenty of those. Also, we should have some exercise, which we'll get to in a minute. So we say that the American diet is designed for disease. The standard American diet, SAD, it's sad. And that's because we get a lot of our nutrients from refined and processed foods. And that's just not the best thing for us. And dairy and animal products, we get a lot here. And only 7% from fruits and vegetables. So here's the general rule about that. The best thing to eat is the thing that's closest to what it was before you harvested it. For instance, eating a whole apple is better than eating applesauce because applesauce has been processed. Do you get it? So if I can eat as close to whole food that I can get, then that is the best choice. So all the dairy products, for instance, cheese, by the way, is actually quite good for you. And if you don't have allergy to dairy products, then they're actually fine for you, but they are processed by nature, right? So we take the milk out of the cow and we do stuff to it. We process it to make it where we can drink it. So we take away some of the bacteria, we cool it down, we take the cream off so we can use that to make the cheese. Cheese goes through a whole process of fermentation to become cheese and that kind of thing. Whereas when you're eating a fruit and vegetable, you pick a carrot out of the ground, you eat it just like that. You may peel the skin off of it. If it's organic, you don't necessarily need to do that. I had a book from a doctor, and the name of the book was called Eat Dirt, and he said, go out to your garden, pull out a carrot, brush it off just a tad, and eat it. Don't even wash it. I thought that was interesting. He thought the minerals you got from the dirt would be good, as long as you knew there was no, insecticides that got sprayed into the dirt right there. I thought that was an interesting idea. All right, so we want to, of course, stay healthy. You've heard the adage, you are what you eat. So we know now what the components of the food are. So let's talk about actually getting them and staying healthy. So this is similar to the food pyramid. Once again, put out by, in one case, the government. But we're going to have a large part of our plate is going to be devoted to fruits and vegetables that are as close to what they came out of the ground looking like, right? See, I would not include juice in that. I don't think juice is all that healthy. We add a lot of sugar to it. Here we have meat, fish, eggs, beans. Beans are processed in the sense that we cook them typically, right? If they're dry, we add water to them. Meat, it's the actual muscle. It had to be, of course, taken off of the creature and then cooked, which is a type of processing as well. We have our food and drinks high in fat or sugar, or we have very few. Notice they allow it, but just very few. Milk and dairy foods here, all processed. And then here we're looking at our bread, rice, potatoes, pasta, and other starchy foods. Potatoes are whole. So remember, that's good for us. If it's just like it came out of the ground that way, cook it, and we're good to go. Whereas bread has been highly processed. The wheat is taken down. It is, the chaff and the grain and all that kind of stuff, and it's ground up and it's turned into bread and added with the yeast and et cetera, et cetera. Same with pasta. Lots of processing. So if you can stay away from processed, that would be the better choice. It doesn't mean you should never have pasta again. No, nothing like that. It's just don't make it the main part on your plate. So on page 176 of your student activity manual, you're going to find a picture that looks a lot like this, and this is called myplate.gov. We're going to actually be, for our lab, playing a little game with having to do with this. Okay, but what page 176 does for you here, it has a chart, and in this chart it's going to tell you sources of the food we should have. So for instance, you can see our bigger parts are vegetables and grains. I like the fact that, look, between fruits and vegetables, that's half my plate. I really like that about it. I've got my protein down here. There's still, in my mind, maybe a little too much emphasis on grain. And then we have our dairy over here. But on this page, if you go look at that chart, you'll see that grains, they recommend 6 ounces. We saw that earlier. And here are some sources of grains. bread, cornbread, crackers, grits. Yum, I like grits a lot. That's from corn, by the way. Oatmeal, pancakes, pasta, popcorn. Ooh, I like popcorn. Ready to eat breakfast cereals, rice, sandwich buns, and rolls, and tortillas. All right, so those are all things that you can get from in the grain section right there. In our vegetables, of course, you would know any green vegetable you can think of, asparagus, a salad, this kind of stuff. Beans, beets, broccoli, cabbage, corn, green beans, green peas, spinach, squash, sweet potatoes, that kind of thing will be considered our vegetable. Then we have our fruits. They're recommending 1.5 cups every day. Apples, I've just decided, especially if you get an organic apple, they used to say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Okay, I've decided I believe that, and I want to start eating more apples. The biggest reason I tended to avoid them was because they had a lot of sugar in them, But my understanding is now, especially in the skin of the apple, go ahead and eat that skin. That's why you should get organic. So you can eat that skin. You're going to get some natural forms of selenium and other trace elements that are just so good for you. So apples, apricots. I've heard lots about apricots, or apricot, you might pronounce it that way. In fact, dried apricot, are supposed to be so good. They're rich in so many things. So I don't know. I'll have to see about getting some of those. Bananas, berries, grapes, lemons, mangoes, etc. We have dairy, the cheeses. I believe cheese is a health food, and personally, ice cream there's sugar in that one, but it's got some good stuff for you. Milk, there's a big kind of kick on milk now to go with the raw milk. I'm a microbiologist, so I'm sensitive about microorganisms, but I think it is safe to drink raw milk. As long as you know where it came from, date on it, that kind of stuff, you should be just fine. Keep it refrigerated, you're okay. The other stuff that you get at the store has been pasteurized. That means it was heated up and then cooled very quickly to kill off some of that bacteria. The problem is, in that heating, it also kills off some of those healthy enzymes that are in the milk, so it's kind of a bummer. You have to go to a farm, though, to get the raw milk. So I just drink the stuff from the store, personally. Okay, then, of course, our proteins would be kinds of meats and beans and some other legumes, including things like nuts and peanuts and things like that. Okay, so if you look at that, you will see, and then it talks about our exercise. On page 177, it tells you to record these. So maybe over, at least for a day, you will say what you ate for breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack, and what kind of exercise you got. And then fill in a chart and answer the questions at the bottom about how well you're doing on your diet. Exercise, the government recommends 60 minutes? That's an hour. That's a long time. We've been kind of cooped up right inside. Hopefully you'll have a chance to get out. I will tell you that sunshine is very good for you, as long as you're not directly where you're going to get a sunburn. Sunshine is making you healthy, y'all. Get out there, fresh air. Move your body around. It gets your lymphatic system moving, and it keeps you from getting sick. So it's so good for you. An hour's a lot, so hopefully you can do that. I think, didn't we talk about in this class about the lymphatic system? Maybe not. And like jumping on a trampoline is really good as long as you're safe on that. But here's some kids running, so that's a good idea. It's fixing to get hot. Swimming in the summertime, excellent exercise. Okay, in our book, it also talks about a disease. When we look at nutrition and we look at eating healthy, there are a couple things that we need to watch out for, and one of these is a disease called diabetes. Now, diabetes is something that some people are born with, okay? They don't have any control over it. That's called diabetes 1, type 1. But there's also one called diabetes type 2, which as we get older, you kids don't need to worry about it, but as you get older, it tends to, our bodies tend to start, slowing down and this kind of thing. So it's important to eat healthy, especially as you get older. In fact, as young as you are, y'all can withstand quite a bit of abuse as far as what you're eating. And when you get older, you won't be able to eat as much junk food. But remember the pancreas. So here is a picture of the liver and everything. So the stomach would be right over the top of this, right? Remember that? Because there's the beginning of the small intestine. But the pancreas, digestive enzymes, and squirting that into the duodenum, and helping to work with digestion in the small intestine. Well, it also makes an important hormone called insulin. And insulin is what helps get glucose into our cells so we can make energy. It ushers it in. It's kind of like the taxi taking it in. Let's work on there's our pancreas right there. How does it work? Well, so the insulin wants to get in. There's a receptor on every cell that the insulin is going to unlock this little lock and open this door. And that glucose can now go into the cell when that door gets unlocked. Okay? So that turns out to be super important. If we can't get it in to our cells, we can't make our ATP. All right? We're going to watch a little video. This video was made by people in England, and they have a little accent and say some words kind of strangely.
About 10% of people with diabetes have type 1. It's got nothing to do with diet or lifestyle, it just happens. When you have type 1 diabetes, your body attacks the insulin-producing cells in your pancreas, so you can't produce any insulin at all. And we all need insulin to live. It does an essential job. It allows the glucose in our blood to enter our cells and fuel our bodies. When you have type 1 diabetes, your body still breaks down the carbohydrate from food and drink and turns it into glucose. But when the glucose enters your bloodstream, there's no insulin to allow it into your body's cells. More and more glucose then builds up in your bloodstream. So what does this mean? Well, before diagnosis, your body tries to get rid of the glucose through your kidneys, and that makes you wee a lot. Weeing so much leads to another symptom of diabetes, extreme thirst. Because glucose can't enter your cells to give you energy, you'll feel incredibly tired. To try and get energy, the body breaks down fat stores to provide fuel. That's why people often lose weight before discovering they've got type 1 diabetes. These symptoms tend to come on quickly, over just a few days or weeks. Anyone who has these symptoms should see a doctor as soon as possible. If you've got type 1 diabetes, you get insulin into your body by injecting it, or using a pump which delivers a constant supply into you. You'll also need to check that your blood glucose levels are not too low or too high by using a blood glucose testing device several times a day. When you start taking insulin, you'll begin to feel better, and your blood glucose levels will go down. This is important because over a long period of time, high glucose levels in your blood can seriously damage your heart, your eyes, your feet, and your kidneys. These are known as the complications of diabetes. But with the right treatment and care, the long-term effects of diabetes and high glucose levels can be managed. You can find out how we can help you manage your diabetes on our website. We're still not sure why some people get type 1 diabetes and others don't, or why the immune system of someone with type 1 attacks the cells that produce insulin. But our researchers are learning more and more about type 1 diabetes, so we can develop new treatments and one day find a cure.
Okay, so like I said, that type 1 diabetes is something you're born with. It can come on later in life as in youth, okay, so not as a grown-up. I have had a couple students in the past who have been diabetic, and they would have to inject themselves with insulin. I will tell you that the little syringe has a very tiny needle, and so it's not that painful to inject insulin into you. Hopefully you don't have a struggle with this, with diabetes, and you don't have that problem. But there is another type of diabetes which is much more prevalent. It's called type 2, and it comes on later onto adults, people my age and older. And what happens here is that in type 1, which we just saw, is the body's not making enough insulin. Okay, so there's just not enough insulin, so it can't go in. It's just not there. Your pancreas is not sufficient. Where in type 2, you're making insulin, but your cells don't recognize it. Okay, so there's not enough they don't open the doors. Like they go to open the key, they turn the key, and it doesn't actually open the door. And so therefore the insulin doesn't go in. It does get to a point the body kind of gets used to not using as much insulin, and therefore the body will stop producing as much insulin. So while these people can inject themselves with insulin and fix it, these people cannot. Some of them end up having to inject themselves with insulin if they stop producing some. But for the most part, they have to just fix their diet and eat their food at a certain time and not too much sugar, nothing that's going to really spike their blood sugar. Okay, so this gets us to our lab time. In our lab time, we were going to be playing actually a little game together. It's kind of a bummer for me to play a game without y'all, so that's too bad. But I'm going to show it to you here. I actually played it. This is the game. It is the MyGov plate thing, just like in your book right there. Sadly, some of the things I'm holding up didn't quite get to the view of the camera. So sorry about that. You'll be able to make sense of it though. Let's listen. All right, so here we go. We have our playing mat right here, and we have our spinner. Okay, so we're going to try to fill up our plate with various things which we have right in here. Okay. All right, so let's spin first. Nice. I'm going to end up with, looks like protein. All right, so I'm going to pick a protein. Let's look in here for a protein. All right, so do you remember what protein is? Let's look through here. Ooh, what about that? That's meat, right? See what that is? That's shrimp. Yeah, go with that. Or, ooh, look what I found. This is steak. I'm going to go with steak. All right, so I'm going to put that in my protein section of my plate right there, okay? So that looks like I've got my protein. So now I'm going to spin again. Oops, that wasn't a very good spin. All right, and let's see what I end up with. Looks like dairy. Okay, so I see some interesting things. Look at this. Ice cream, that's dairy. Pudding. How about a glass of strawberry milk? It says strawberry milk, yum. Okay. Let's see. Oh, tofu, bleh, let's just get rid of that. Yeah, no thanks. Cottage cheese, yogurt. Here's a glass of chocolate milk. Yeah, we could go with chocolate milk. Okay. I'm looking for, I found that pudding. Actual milk. Oh no, here we go. I'm gonna go with this. What's that? Cheddar cheese cubes. All right, I'm gonna put that in my dairy instead of drinking milk. All right, so I've got two of my things for my plate right here, okay? And let's see. Next, what do you think that is? Let's go with vegetables. All right, so, Now this is in the vegetable group. Yeah, even though it's really technically a fruit. Did you know that? Yeah. What is that? Avocado? Yeah? That's definitely my choice. I love avocado, but it's going to go in the vegetable group. Okay, all right, that works. So far I'm doing pretty well. Let's see. Uh-oh, I don't know what give means. I'm not sure what that means. So maybe I give it to you. I give you one of mine. Yeah, probably that's it. Okay, so what I need is fruit and grain. Oh, hooray! Fruit and grain. I see some grapes. Yum. I love grapes. They're good for you. Here is grapefruit. I don't know how you feel about that. I thought I saw watermelon earlier. Look at all those greens. Yum. I love all those. Oh, here's an apple. Apple. Oh, I think I see what I want. Here's cantaloupe. This is, I'm going to go with a strawberry. Okay, that's going to be my fruit, my strawberry. All right, so all I have to do is get a grain here. Oh, come on. I'm going to do that, okay? Oh, yeah, I got grain. Okay, so let's see. Any ideas what grain is? Now, it's a sweet potato grain? No, it's going to be in the green, right? So it's going to be a vegetable. What about corn, though? Corn, they have it in vegetable, but I would argue with that and say that corn is actually a grain, okay, rather than a vegetable. So if that's not a grain, then what about this? Yeah, rice would be considered a grain. Here's some cereal. That's a grain. What is this? Brown rice. Blech. Pasta. That would be a grain. Oh, here's some bagels. That's a grain. Any kind of bread, really. Here's a bread roll. Yeah. You gotta love rolls. So what should I pick? Cheese. Looks like I might have got all the grains. Oh wait, here's some more. Here's oatmeal. Oatmeal. Okay. So I think I'm going to go with the roll, right? Even though I don't really eat that many rolls. Okay, so here, does it look like a balanced meal? I think I need to get more veggies, right? So if I picked another vegetable, I would probably go with something. I know avocado's green and everything, but I'd probably go with like green beans, like that. So typically, they're going to tell us to load up our plate with plenty of grains and stuff. I'm going to turn this around. Is that right now? Is that
No.
right side up for you? I don't even know. Maybe it was the other way. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So if we were together, of course, we would play this game, and y'all would get to pick the different things right there. Okay. Sorry, we're not together.
See y'all soon.
Okay, so yeah, we would have each had our little playing board, and then y'all could have picked your own little one you wanted to put on there, you know. And most of the times, my students really enjoy this little game. All right, so we're at the end of our lecture for today. And next week, we're going to talk about bones, which is very exciting. But keep in mind, remember, we have a human body model project coming up pretty soon. And we're going to end up trying to Zoom our meeting so we can all see what our models are. Okay, so hopefully y'all are working on those. And you can shoot me an email if you need some inspiration or ideas or something. I meant to put in some pictures here of different, types of models people would have made. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll see y'all soon. Or talk to you soon. Bye.